specific investment.
Welcome to the Bullington Capital Report, hosted by Bill Bullington. For the next hour, you'll receive information on current market conditions and trends that could affect your financial future. If you have a question, you can participate in today's program by calling 216-901-0945. That's 216-901-0WHK. You can also reach Bill by going to his website, bullingtoncapital.com. And now, here's Bill Bullington.
Well, welcome back, everybody. Wow. Sorry about that. Yeah, been the interesting time period. I've been studying a lot over the past few weeks. Lots of changes coming down. Man, I would hate to do income tax for a living. That is that is mind-boggling. How much changes there every year on that. But and Monday's the big day. Everybody got to get their stuff in, at least get it postmarked, for the IRS. And a lot of people, I guess you could file an extension. That'll give you all the way until I believe it's October. But you need to get those payments in there. Because if your payment's short, then you get penalized, and you're already paying taxes. Who wants to pay penalties and interest on all that stuff? So, maybe in the next few weeks we'll try to get another tax preparer on the show, give you some ideas as what you might be able to do to save some taxes going forward. That's one of the things I really like about the annuities. A lot of people don't like annuities. They look at the expense ratios and they just turn a blind eye. Yeah, it's just too much money. But the annuities, they're insurance products. And you're literally buying a stream of, it's an insurance product. You're insuring your income for the future, and that's kind of a big deal. And especially looking at the amounts that you can get guaranteed, and you can't get that right now on treasuries. You can't get it on CDs. The rates of return that they're willing to guarantee for the rest of your life are just not being matched by the current interest rates. And the current interest rates are pretty high relative to what they've been over the past 10 years. So I think that they make a lot of sense, but not for everybody. I mean, if you've got several $1 million and you haven't spent more than, maybe you're only living on $100,000 a year, then yeah, you don't need an annuity. Just keep doing what you're doing. But for an awful lot of people, they make an awful lot of sense. And there is a website that you can go to that you can play around with. It shows you, this is my favorite annuity product, how much income you could get based on what you're investing. And I like it. I think it makes an awful lot of sense. You look at what the stock markets have done over the past few years. There are a lot of funds out there that aren't doing anywhere near what the S&P 500 is doing, and it also depends on. There are a lot of factors that come into play, but most mutual funds have not done well for the last 2 to 3 years. I mean, they're barely up, and that is. You don't want that happening when you retire. Well, even the S&P 500, one of the best. If you look at where it was at the last day of December in 2021, it's only up 6.83% from then, from December of 2021. What year is it again? 2024, and it's only up 6.83%. Now you get the dividend too, so that's not bad. But and the vast majority that's in the top 10% of all funds. So that's my point when you're talking about some of these other types of investments. And by the way, this very age related. If you were in your 40s, no, I would not. I would not recommend that you guys in your 40s have an annuity. I would recommend you use exchange traded funds. They're extremely inexpensive. The expense ratios on those are really low. They're also highly tax efficient. Unless you sell the vast majority of them, something that you need to talk over with your financial advisor, because you don't want to get an ETF who has to pay taxes on capital gains and dividends going forward, because a lot of them don't. A lot of them are deferring those taxes until you actually sell the shares. So if you don't sell the shares, despite the fact that there's changes going on inside that fund, they're deferred until you actually sell the shares. That's a big deal. That's a really big deal, especially if you're in your 40s. Yeah, because you get to escape without having to pay taxes on it. And if it's in an IRA or it's a rollover from a 401k plan or that went into an IRA, whatever it is, if it's tax deferred, then you don't have to worry about any of this. If you're looking at taxable money, that tax deferral really helps. As I cry, as I send my check to the IRS for Monday, the yeah, it is mind-boggling. The I really, I don't know. Taxes are high in America. I know people say they're higher in other countries in the world, and I get it. But in other countries in the world, they also have medical care and college that gets paid for if you can qualify by taking the test. So nothing's perfect. It's pretty good. I'm so glad to be an American. Every day I think about that oftentimes as I'm kind of going through the surfing the internet and reading stories about things that are happening in other parts of the world. I feel like very fortunate to be an American and be here, especially on a day like today. I don't know if anybody's looked outside where you are. It's sunshiny where I am, a lot warmer than it has been in quite a while, so that's nice. Better days are coming. That's nice too. And that's the thing about interest rates. I don't know if better days are coming for interest rates or not. And by the way, higher interest rates are generally not that good for the economy. It's good for investors. So there's a conflict of interest there. And then what is good for investors is typically not that good for the economy. Investors love high interest rates on their investments, but that increases the cost of financing for your cars and homes. And those are the two biggest budget items on the average American household budget are your transportation and your housing. So when interest rates go up, it raises those prices, not the amount that you're spending on that, fairly significantly, and then that comes out of all the other spending. So GDP doesn't even get affected all that much by it because you're still spending the money. You're just spending it in different places. So at any rate, I was thinking, as I look back over my career, which I'm embarrassed to say it's about 40 years now. Was it 40? No, it's not 40. It's like 35. That's still, I mean, that's a lot. So, yeah, that is really a lot. Holy cow. I can't believe it. But when I first started, it was really fascinating to see what was there during that time period. They were still selling 10% CDs. The CDs had gotten up to 10, or no, it had come down to 10% because CD rates had peaked somewhere around 18% or so in the early 80s. Now, I was too young to be in the industry at that point in time, but I remember it because my grandfather had a tragic accident and stayed in a coma for several years before he finally passed away. And the accident, there was a insurance company that paid out because of the accident. And I remember my grandmother searching around, and she was getting 18% in a money market account. I mean, can you imagine? 18%. And by the way, mortgages were around 21, 22%. 20, when you're paying 20% interest, okay, in roughly 3 years, you've paid for the a little over 3 years, you've paid nearly as much in payments as you would have paid for the entire house if you'd have just written a check right up front, if you were able to do that. Think about that for a second. And that big screeching sound everybody was hearing all across the country, that was the economy coming to a halt. We had a unemployment that was over 10% for a while. And Paul Volcker was the head of the Fed. And Jimmy Carter went to him and said, "Look, we have double-digit inflation. How do we fix that?" And Paul Volcker said, "You do that, you'll go down as one of the worst presidents that's ever lived." And he said, "Well, is he going to fix it?" "Yes, I can fix it." And then do it. And a lot of people, if they're my age or older, they remember the really high interest rates. Young people have no clue what it was like back then. It was mind-boggling. I hope we never see that ever again. But anyway, and it worked. It stopped the economy. Yep, Jimmy Carter didn't get reelected. He did go down in many people's eyes as one of the worst presidents that ever lived. And Reagan came in, and he got to catch he caught the healing side of it, which was very good for him. And he did a lot of good things. I remember the Tax Act of 1986. It did simplify taxes somewhat. His goal was to get it super simple, and didn't quite achieve that, but they did make it a little bit easier, I think, on some people in the country. And if any of this really matters much, and the only reason I bring that up is because the situation that we're in today, you've got inflation that's higher than normal. You've got interest rates that have been rising. What generally happens is they'll keep raising interest rates. Eventually, they slow down or stop when they achieve a inflation stability, which means inflation stops going up. The hard part is not affecting the economy too badly to force a recession that gets out of hand or it becomes extremely significant. That's really hard to do. And when you hear that term soft landing, that's basically what they're talking about. That's what they would like to be able to achieve. What does that mean? Market doesn't crash, unemployment doesn't get affected too much. People are still buying houses and cars, the two biggest items that they have in their budget typically. And the economy escapes with a small amount of damage instead of a large amount of damage. So it's not that easy to do, but the nice thing is we have a lot of tools, and they do make adjustments. They all take time. The thing that's tough about that is they all take time. And if you're if you're not invested correctly, it could be very damaging. And correctly is not it's not the one that's going to do the best. It's the one that you can handle. Because the investments that generally have the highest return also have the highest risk.